Welcome to the Explainer. Now, normally we unpack data or scientific concepts, but today we're descending into pure psychological terror. We are stepping right inside room 333 of London's luxurious Langham Hotel. We're going to construct a step-by-step visual of what went horribly wrong during one skeptical journalist's stay.
So ask yourself, what actually happens when pure, cold logic collides with the supernatural? Well, we're going to follow Annie. She's a 25-year-old British journalist who relies strictly on hard evidence. She actually shoots documentaries based on paranormal investigations, and she's got a really successful track record of exposing fake haunted locations. So she stepped into the Langham fully intending to just spend one night, record her findings, debunk the whole myth, and move on to her next case. But instead, she stepped into an environment designed to systematically break down her reality.
Section 1. The Haunted Honeymoon Legend. Okay, to really grasp what happened to Annie, we first need to rewind and look at the incredibly dark history of this specific location. Years ago, a doctor and his wife checked into room 333 for their honeymoon. But this romantic getaway, it turned into an absolute slaughter. The doctor, seemingly out of nowhere, went completely mad. He murdered his wife right there in the room, and then he took his own life. And the legend dictates that his tortured, violent spirit has basically been trapped within those walls ever since. This is the exact myth Annie came to shatter. Section 2. A skeptic checks in. Picture this. Annie arrives at the luxurious lobby, fully equipped with digital cameras and voice recorders, totally expecting your standard modern hotel experience. But the second she tells the receptionist she's checking into room 333, that warm, welcoming smile just vanishes. A palpable tension fills the air. The clerk forces this stiff nod and hands over an old, physical brass key. As Annie makes her way up to the third floor, her modern reality really begins to fracture. The corridor is completely empty. The paintings on the walls are severely faded, which is a massive contrast to the beautiful lobby down below. Dim yellow lamps cast these long, sickly shadows, and the ancient wooden floorboards are groaning heavily under every single step.
And then she reaches it, room 333, sitting at the very end of this desolate corridor. The door itself is made of dark, polished wood with a really heavy brass handle. When she grabs it, the metal is unnaturally, piercingly cold. She pushes the door open and she isn't greeted by the dim light of the hallway. It is pitch black darkness. She actually has to use her phone's flashlight just to find the light switches. And when she flicks them on, it reveals a room drenched in Victorian-style decor. We're talking a king-size bed, an antique dressing table, and right opposite the bed, a massive, imposing, full-length mirror. Now, before she can even fully process the room, a loud crash echoes from the hallway. Her heavy suitcase, which she had just left outside the door, mysteriously topples over entirely on its own. It's your classic jump scare. But how does she cope? Annie ironically retreats into her systematic, rational setup to capture evidence. She mounts her tripod, secures the camera, and connects the mic. She's creating this false sense of security through her technology, completely confident her equipment will capture any trickery.
Section 3. The Midnight Room Service.
So what started as a quiet evening of laptop research by the fireplace quickly spirals completely out of control. It's a chilly November night. Annie had ordered a sandwich, left her cameras rolling, and eventually drifted off to sleep on the sofa. But at exactly 1 a.m., her sleep is violently interrupted. A sharp knock echoes through the room. Still a bit groggy, she hears a man's voice call out from the hallway, "Your room service, madam." But here's the thing, she hadn't ordered anything else.
Assuming it's just a mix-up, she goes over and checks the peephole. There's a strange butler standing out in the hallway, holding a silver tray covered by a large lid. Annie opens the door to just tell him he's got the wrong room, but the man absolutely insists it's for her. Slowly, he lifts the metal lid, and what lay on the plate beneath it completely defies all reason. It was Annie's own severed head staring blankly right back at her. A blood-curdling scream escapes her lungs, and she instinctively squeezes her eyes shut in sheer terror. When she forces them open just a second later, the butler is gone, the tray is gone, the long, dim hallway is completely empty. Panicking, Annie slams the door shut and desperately rushes to check her digital safety net. She fully expects her camera to have caught this ghostly butler, right? But no, the digital file is completely corrupted. She frantically checks her high-end audio recorder, expecting to hear the knock and the man's voice. Instead, nothing.
Nothing but the eerie creak of the wooden door opening and the piercing audio of her own terrified scream. Her technology had utterly and completely failed her.
Section 4. The Man in the Mirror.
Now completely stripped of her logic and her hard evidence, the physical environment of the room literally turns against her. Despite the fire burning brightly in the hearth, the temperature in room 333 plummets to freezing. With panic really setting in now, Annie retreats into the bathroom to splash cold water on her face, just praying to wake up from a nightmare. But as she wipes her eyes and looks up into the mirror, the nightmare becomes real. Standing directly behind her is a figure that perfectly matches the local legends. We're talking a rotting face, long, horrifying nails, draped in shredded Victorian clothing. It was the murderous doctor. And as she watches in the glass, his decaying hands begin reaching out, wrapping towards her neck to strangle her. Annie violently spins around to face her attacker, but the bathroom is entirely empty.
Raw survival instinct takes over. She bolts for the main door to escape, grabs that cold brass handle, and pulls. Nothing. It is completely locked from the inside. Suddenly, the room's lights begin to violently flicker. And in those blinding, strobe-like flashes of darkness and light, the entity actually appears in the room with her. Pale, ghastly skin, piercing, sickly yellow eyes, slowly, methodically stepping closer and closer to her.
Section 5. A gruesome rescue.
Trapped inside a locked room with a violent entity, Annie's blood-curdling screams echo so loudly they actually alert the hotel's night shift. A few staff members rush up to room 333, throw their weight against the heavy wood, and literally break the door down. But what they find inside shatters all reality. You see, there was no ghost. There was no doctor in torn Victorian clothes. There was only Annie. She was entirely alone, standing in the bathroom, violently and repeatedly smashing her own head into the mirror. She's screaming in absolute hysteria as shards of glass embed deep into her own face. The staff actually has to physically tackle her to the ground to pull her away from the broken glass before she finally loses consciousness.
Sometime later, Annie wakes up in the hotel's medical ward, bandaged and deeply traumatized. She frantically explains her side of the story to the staff, how this terrifying man in the mirror had forced her to smash her head into the glass. The staff listens in this grim, heavy silence before delivering a final chilling revelation. That was the doctor's spirit, they tell her. He murdered his wife the exact same way. Now Annie physically recovered, but her logical worldview was permanently destroyed, and it leaves us with a truly horrifying question to end this explainer. Did the doctor's ghost physically attack her, or did the supernatural aura of room 333 actually possess Annie's own mind, forcing her to reenact a century-old murder? And knowing all of this, who is going to be the next skeptic brave enough to check in to room 333?